Imagine this, April 9, 1942, the BATAAN Peninsula in the Philippines. After a grueling, 3-month battle, the air falls silent. But this isn't the silence of peace. It's the eerie quiet before a new kind of horror begins. Tens of thousands of American and Filipino soldiers, exhausted, starving, and sick, lay down their arms, surrendering to the Imperial Japanese Army. They believed the worst was over. They were tragically wrong. What followed was not a standard prisoner of war transfer, but a forced march that would be forever seared into history as the BATAAN Death March. This is a story of unimaginable hardship, but it's also a story of incredible human spirit and resilience. We're going to walk this path together, to understand what these soldiers endured, and why their sacrifice must never be forgotten. The surrender itself was a chaotic and desperate affair. General Edward P. King, the American commander, made the agonizing decision to surrender his forces on BATAAN to prevent a complete slaughter. His men were out of food, ammunition, and medicine. Malaria, dysentery, and beriberi were rampant. They had held out 4 months, defying all expectations, but they could fight no more. The Japanese, who had expected a swift victory, were infuriated by the prolonged resistance. They were also completely unprepared for the sheer number of prisoners, around 75,000 men. This combination of fury and logistical failure created a perfect storm for atrocity. The march began almost immediately. The prisoners were herded onto the dusty, sun-baked roads of BATAAN, with no idea where they were going or how long it would take. The destination was Camp O'Donnell, a prison camp over 65 miles away. Under the scorching tropical sun, with little to no food or water provided by their captors, the ordeal began. The Japanese soldiers, hardened by their own brutal training, showed little mercy. Any prisoner who stumbled, fell behind, or paused to help a comrade was often bayoneted, shot, or beaten to death on the spot. The roads became a trail of suffering. The physical torment was relentless. Men were already weak from months of combat and malnutrition. Now, they were forced to march day and night. The heat was suffocating, the humidity draining. Their thirst became an obsession. They would desperately look for any source of water, a muddy Carabao wallow, a stagnant ditch, anything to wet their parched lips, often drinking contaminated water that only made them sicker. The Japanese would sometimes taunt them, pouring out fresh water onto the dusty ground in front of the desperate men. Food was almost non-existent. Occasionally, they were given a small bowl of rice, sometimes so spoiled it was crawling with maggots. Yet, they ate it, because to not eat meant certain death. Local Filipino civilians risked everything to help. Along the route, brave men, women, and even children would try to throw food, fruit, or small packets of water to the marching prisoners. It was an act of incredible courage, if caught. These civilians were often beaten or killed by the Japanese guards. But they did it anyway, offering a small glimmer of humanity in a world that had gone mad. For the soldiers who received these small gifts, it was more than just sustenance. It was a reminder that they were not completely alone, that someone, somewhere, still cared. Beyond the physical torture was the constant psychological strain. The soldiers witnessed unspeakable cruelty. They saw their friends, men they had fought alongside for months, executed for the smallest infraction. They saw men succumbing to heat stroke, collapsing on the side of the road, and being left for dead. The arbitrary brutality was designed to break their spirits, to dehumanize them completely. This casual cruelty, known as sun treatment, where men were forced to sit in the direct sun for hours without water, was a common form of torture. The march wasn't just a journey from point A to point B. It was a systematic process of elimination. Yet, amidst this darkness, incredible acts of bravery and camaraderie shone through. Soldiers who could barely stand would support their even weaker comrades, practically carrying them for miles. They would share their pitiful rations of food and water, whisper words of encouragement, and protect each other as best they could. This buddy system was crucial for survival. The bonds forged in the crucible of combat were now the lifelines that kept men going, one painful step at a time. They refused to let the enemy extinguish their humanity. They were determined to survive, not just for themselves, but for the man next to them. The march lasted for what felt like an eternity. For most, it was anywhere from 5 to 10 days. Finally, the exhausted survivors who made it through the main part of the march were crammed into suffocatingly hot, unventilated boxcars for the final leg of the journey by rail to Coppers. Hundreds more died in these hell ships on rails from suffocation and heat exhaustion. From Coppers, it was another several miles of marching to the gates of Camp O'Donnell. But arrival at the camp was not the end of the ordeal. It was merely the beginning of a new chapter of suffering. Camp O'Donnell was a poorly constructed, overcrowded facility with no sanitation and scarcely any food, water, or medicine. Disease ran rampant. The death rate was catastrophic. In just the first few months, thousands more American and Filipino prisoners perished within its fences. The daily death toll was so high that burial details became a constant, gruesome task for the survivors. Estimating the exact number of casualties from the BATAAN Death March is difficult, but historical consensus places the number of deaths during the march itself in the thousands. Somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 Filipino soldiers and 600 to 650 American soldiers died on the road. Thousands more would die in the horrific conditions at Camp O'Donnell in the weeks that followed. It stands as one of the most horrific war crimes of World War II. After the war, the Japanese commander responsible for the march, General Masaharu Hama, was tried for war crimes by an American military commission. He was convicted and executed in 1946, but justice for the victims is more than just punishment for the perpetrators. True justice is about remembrance. It's about ensuring that the world never forgets what happened on those dusty roads in Bataan. Today, memorials stand in both the Philippines and the United States to honor the victims. In New Mexico, where many of the American soldiers of the 200th and 515th Coast Artillery came from, an annual Bataan Memorial Death March is held. Participants, both military and civilian, marched 26.2 miles through the high desert terrain to honor the heroic service members who defended the Philippines. It's a grueling physical challenge, but it's a way to connect with that history and ensure the legacy of those soldiers endures. The story of the Bataan Death March is a harrowing one, but it's a vital part of our shared history. It's a testament to the extremes of human cruelty, but more importantly, it's a powerful story of endurance, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood. The men who survived Bataan and the subsequent years as prisoners of war were forever changed, but their spirit was not broken. They carried the memory of their fallen comrades and bore witness to the atrocities they endured, so that we, generations later, would understand the true cost of war and the incredible price of freedom. Thank you for joining me to remember these heroes. Their story is a solemn reminder of why we must always strive for a world where such events can never happen again. If you found this story meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more important stories from our past. Your support helps us keep these memories alive. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Short Story TV PH. Hit the notification bell so you never miss another tale. Until next time, keep your imagination alive and your stories close.